Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to another PvP tier list for My Hero Ultra Impact. Today, we are going to be placing the newest characters in the game into this tier list, as well as moving around some of the old characters who have kind of fallen off with the introduction of new characters and new memories. So we're going to start off with the old characters, and then we'll move into the new characters that you see down here in the to be determined tier. So the very first character I want to move, and this probably won't surprise a lot of people, but is going to be Mount Lady. Mount Lady has somehow miraculously stayed up here for a really long time. Like, she's good because she has the AoE, she has the bullseye and stuff like that, but she's just kind of fallen off with the introduction of some of these new characters, right? She's just not as good as she used to be. She's still okay in the sub slot, don't get me wrong, but I don't feel like she's quite as good as these other sub meta characters when you compare these other new characters that are coming into the game. So we're going to move Mount Lady down to A tier. So she is still competent. She's still a very decent character. She can still be used quite often, but yeah, she's just not S tier material anymore. And in case you didn't notice, since the last PvP tier list, I have created a new tier and collapsed another tier. So F tier right here, down where it says low value, used to be D and F tier. I collapsed the D and F tier and put them together because all of these characters are kind of all dookie. And then I made a new tier up here under A. It used to go competent to situational, so situational used to be B. I decided I needed a new tier because some of these characters in A are significantly better than the B tier characters, right? And all of these characters in A and B that you see right here used to be in A tier together. So hopefully that makes it a little bit easier for you guys to differentiate which characters are good and which characters are not. The next character that we need to move in this tier list, it's kind of been a long time coming, especially since Music Festival Denki came out, because along with Music Festival Denki, we got the new memory that lowers action skill cooldown time, and that memory is rampant right now. And every time action skill cooldown time is lowered, this guy gets benefits from it, and he is just kind of a menace right now in PvP. So we're gonna put him up to sub meta. I still do think like Celebration Bakugo is better in my opinion, but Steampunk Bakugo I feel like has kind of shown his worth in PvP recently, and you'll see him a lot more in the upper ranks, so I do feel like it's worth putting him up to sub meta. Unfortunately, Steampunk Deku does not get the same treatment, but he is staying in A tier, so there is that. Next, we have Star and Stripe. Star and Stripe, I feel like I kind of did a little bit dirty previously. So Star and Stripe right now is in the D used for fun tier. I feel like there are certain very rare situations and teams that you can put her on and make use of her, and I feel like if you get her to 130, she is actually okay. She's pretty tanky, she'll do good damage, right? So we're gonna put her up to C tier for now. I feel like that's okay. I feel like that's fair for Star and Stripe to put her in C tier. And then last but not least, for the old characters that we are moving around, we do need to move New Year's Ochako. I kind of fought this one because like I've used her recently. I'm like, damn, she is really good. I haven't used her a ton, but in the little bit that I've used her, I really like her plus Ultra Gauge down. I feel like she works really well with the new Music Festival Kaminari, because Music Festival Kaminari just interrupts their skill chains, and then she just gets rid of any chance they had at a plus Ultra Gauge because she gets rid of plus Ultra Gauge, which is broken, right? But I feel like she's just a little too squishy, and there's other characters that can do more, and I feel like that's how most of the community felt, so we're going to move her down to S. So all of these characters that I have just moved, I did ask people in the Discord servers, you know, where should we move them? What do you guys think? And this was kind of the consensus for the characters that just got moved. If you guys ever want to give your input, make sure you join the My Hero Ultra Impact community discords, and you guys can also participate in those. And then now we are going to place the new characters. The new characters, a lot of this reasoning was me. I had like one or two of the characters changed after people said like, hey, you're wrong, it should be moved to this. So once again, it's not all me coming up with this, but initially it was me who kind of wrote down the reasoning for this. So Blue Shigaraki, he has good debuffs on enemies, like defense down, power down, and speed down, but some of those are only single target abilities, okay? It's better when it's an AoE ability. Additionally, he lacks damage, like severely, and he's squishy. Not to mention, he gives all opponents, and here's the big one, and allies, recovery block when he is below 30% HP, meaning your allies can't heal when he is below 30% HP. That's kind of a little bit annoying. I mean, it could work all right, I guess, with like Blue Dobby, who doesn't need HP, but it's just a very self-destructive team, and I feel like that's not the greatest for PvP. So we're going to put him into situational C tier. I think there's certain situations where he can be useful. He has defense down and stuff like that, but like you won't see him used too often in PvP, to be completely honest. The next character we're going to place is the Music Festival Kaminari. He is an absolute meta changer, like insanely good, guys. He has great skill interruption with his paralysis, and it gets even better when it's DX'd because it's a low chance to AoE paralyze for 2 turns when it's not DX'd. When you get him DX'd and you get the right DX skill, it becomes a medium chance to paralyze, which is freaking broken. And then he also has Bullseye, so if they have evasion, it doesn't matter. He also gives crit to himself and allies. He heals himself. He increases plus ultra gauge for allies. He decreases the power of opponents, and he lowers the cooldown after 7 crits for himself, and he does amazing damage. So just like absolute meta changer, very good character. He has to go in double S tier. I told you guys when he came out he was going to be broken. I told you the memory is going to be broken. Hopefully you guys went for broke on that character because he still has been the best character to release so far. Even out of all these other characters down here, he was the best. Now, that is not to say that these characters are bad. Actually, a lot of the recent releases have been fire. They've been actually really good. So the next character is the Flames of Rancor Dabi, or Blue Dabi. He is a very solid tank in my opinion. He can't be killed as long as he's burning. He draws aggro as long as he's burning. He also gives Sharp Eye to all allies and opponents, which can be good and bad, but it's going to help him be more tanky, but you might miss some of your hits on opponents. He has burn counter, so anytime he gets attacked, he's going to burn the enemy, which will whittle down the enemy team's health. And that is also potentially a avenue to run like Yellow Dabi, who has Hellfire, and then you're burn countering them with Blue Dabi, and that's going to allow you to just pop off with Hellfire. So that's another thing he could be used for in PvP. Also, he has increased crit of 60% at the start of battle. He'll lose that over the battle, but that's still pretty good. And then there is more crit resist with the new Deku now, though. So you got to keep that in mind. Even though he has that 60% crit, it's going to be harder for him to stay alive because of the new Deku. So initially when he came out, before this new Deku came out, I would have put him higher. But because we waited, this is why I wait a little bit, because it can change so rapidly. I'm actually going to put Dabi into A tier instead of, I might have put him in S tier actually originally. But then now all the crit resist that the new Deku offers, he needs to hit his crits to get hit, to burn himself, right? And so if you're not hitting crits with this Dabi, then that's a big problem for you. Next up, we have Summer Mirko. Summer Mirko is going to give crit to allies, heals based on damage of crits, gains plus ultra effect of 10% up to 5 times, meaning she will get plus ultras more often. So plus ultra effect, if you don't know, it's whenever you plus ultra, instead of using your whole plus ultra gauge, you only use, if you have 10% plus ultra effect, you only use 90%. If you have 20% plus ultra effect, you only use 80% of your plus ultra gauge, so on and so forth. So you can stack it up to 50% plus ultra effect on her, meaning you only use half your plus ultra gauge, meaning you'll be able to plus ultra more often with this character, which can be good. I don't necessarily like throwing off the plus ultra like turn, because you want to go turn 1, turn 2 action skills, turn 3 plus ultra, turn 4 action skill, turn 5 action skill, turn 6 plus ultras. So like having the plus ultra more often isn't really that crazy for PvP unless you're finding a way to give every character on your team plus ultras every other turn, which is possible, but kind of hard to build a team like that. And then she also increases her own speed with crits, and she gains evasion on action skills, and she gains evasion when her HP drops too low. Basically, Mirko is a DPS that has really good single target damage and is relatively hard to kill. She's kind of tanky for a DPS, which is interesting. So for that reason, we're going to put Mirko into A tier as well. She's competent. She's definitely not sub-meta. She's definitely not meta right now, but she is like a competent character who you could run fairly easily right now in PvP. The next character we're going to place is Purple Short-Haired Nejire. She has a ton of skill impact, has Pierce if mind characters are on the enemy team. That pierces against the entire team as long as there's one mind enemy. Has multi-hit, multi-target attacks. Her plus ultra is an AoE that can wipe teams, and it lowers her cooldowns, and it has Pierce. Like, it's so good. Like, she does insane damage for a general pool unit. Increases her own plus ultra gauge as well. She also has resistance to bind, stun, and paralysis, which is really good when you consider this Kaminari is a menace right now, right? So having that resistance to paralysis is big. Having the resistance to bind, compress is big. Resistance to Ochako, her stun, is big. Like, those are the 3 big status element characters, right, that are really annoying right now. So Nejire has resistance to all of those, and then she reduces damage by 20% for 5 turns from the start of battle, and increases her own speed by 30% every 3 turns for 2 turns, which is just really, really good for PvP. So all of that, plus she lowers the enemy team's speed, is why Najiri is going to go into S tier. She is absolutely a sub-meta character. Very, very good. So if you guys haven't pulled for her yet, definitely a good idea while she is still out. And last but not least, we have the new You're Next movie Deku to talk about. This guy, a lot of people are excited for him. A lot of people have been trying him out. A lot of people have been very, very happy with him, because if you lacked Celebration Yayorozu, you felt like you were at a massive disadvantage in this game. Well, now you don't have to feel like that, because this Deku is, I would say, on par almost with that Yayorozu. Like, they do slightly different things. She's a little bit better for like status element nullification, but he does some really nice stuff. So he lowers allies' cooldowns and gives evasion on his plus ultra, which is big. So that means on plus ultra turns, if he goes first, you don't really have to worry about being hit by enemy plus ultras as much. He also gives allies penetrate, which is going to allow them to ignore crit resist. He gives allies crit resist themselves. He regenerates the HP of all allies. He restores 3 temporary status elements. He increases allies' crit hit rate and skill impact by 10% up to 4 times if 2 turns pass while having penetrate, which is very easy to achieve with him. Increases max HP of all allies by 20%, which is crazy, and then he increases his own max HP further. Increases defense and plus ultra gauge of all allies by 20% when using a skill chain. So every time he uses a skill chain, he's increasing your plus ultra gauge by 20% and defense by 20%, which is broken. And then also nullifies status elements for 1 turn every 3 turns, which is insane on plus ultra turns, because the 3rd turn is usually the plus ultra turn where you get hit by like Celebration Ochako stun or something like that. And so now you can now nullify completely plus ultra turn status elements, which is freaking broken. That right there is insane. So for that reason, this Deku 110%, 120% like goes into double S tier, meta tier. He is so broken. And once again, these tiers are not organized in order of like best to least best within the tier. So like having Aizawa up here doesn't mean that Aizawa is better than Deku, right? But all of these characters are just double S tier, they're meta, and I'll try to keep the Dekus together there so it's easier to find them. But yeah, that is the new PvP tier list for August. Let me know what you guys think. Let me know if you agree or disagree with any of the placements. Let me know how you feel about the new characters that we just placed, because I have been really honestly happy with the new characters, and like none of them have been big flops besides Shigaraki, right? Besides Shigaraki, all the rest have been pretty good in my opinion. But let me know your thoughts down in the comments, and if you guys did enjoy this video, please consider going down there, hitting that like button, and hitting that subscribe button. Thank you guys so much for watching. Peace.